Targets of RICO conspiracy and others participated in the RSP enterprise in a variety of ways. Some would use orders from prison on behalf of the Mexican Mafia. These orders include the collection of taxes.
Los Angeles woke up to chaos. Helicopters thundered through the pre-dawn fog. Tactical convoys flooded the streets, and news choppers hovered above freeways that looked more like war zones than traffic arteries. Within a single day, 3,000 arrests shook the city. The footage spread worldwide. Agents in Kevlar storming warehouses, hauling out crates of cash and bricks of narcotics. But the real shock came when investigators uncovered who had triggered it. This wasn't a cartel-on-cartel turf war. It was an underworld coup. After 50 years of uneasy partnership, the Italian Mafia had turned its guns on its oldest allies, the Mexican cartels. For decades, the two criminal empires built a $10 billion cocaine pipeline stretching from Sinaloa to Staten Island. They shared profits, ports, and power. Now they were burning each other's assets to the ground. As sirens wailed across downtown LA, a single question echoed through every law enforcement briefing. Why would the Mafia declare war on the cartels? And why now? Los Angeles isn't just America's film capital. It's the control center of its narcotics economy. Only 150 miles from Tijuana, it gives traffickers instant access to U.S. freeways, airports, and ports that connect to every corner of the globe. Every day, nearly 20,000 shipping containers pass through the twin giants of Long Beach and the Port of LA. Hidden among televisions and toys are the lifelines of organized crime, synthetic precursors, fentanyl tablets, even weapons components. Cartel accountants use legitimate freight companies as camouflage, swapping manifests, bribing dock officials, and routing contraband straight into the city's arteries before customs can blink. Above ground, LAX becomes another smuggler's dream. With 88 million annual passengers and thousands of cargo pallets, no scanner can check it all. Couriers called blind mules board flights carrying drugs sewn into luggage they never packed. Two cartels dominate: Sinaloa, the veteran conglomerate of cocaine and fentanyl, and CJ&G, younger, faster, specializing in meth and human cargo. Together, they command hundreds of street gangs: 18th Street, Florencia 13, the Avenues, who move product, collect debts, and keep the streets in fear. For law enforcement, Los Angeles isn't just a battleground. It's the nexus where global supply meets neighborhood demand, and where billions vanish every year into invisible ledgers. High above the city sprawl, in California's arid hills, another industry thrives in the shadows: cartel-run marijuana superfarms. What began as backyard grow rooms evolved into industrial plantations carved deep into national forests. From the air, they look like small villages: rows of plastic-sheeted greenhouses, irrigation lines snaking through ravines, and diesel pumps roaring through the night. Each operation steals millions of gallons of water from drought-stricken ecosystems, diverting streams that once fed rural towns. Pesticides and rodenticides seep into rivers, killing wildlife for miles. Environmental agents call it ecological terrorism. In 2021, Los Angeles County recorded its largest marijuana seizure ever: over 33,000 plants worth $1.2 billion. By 2025, enforcement teams were dismantling entire valley networks. Yet every time a farm fell, two more appeared, financed by cartel investors using fake property leases and stolen water rights. Even worse, these grows serve a second purpose: money laundering. Profits from fentanyl and meth are funneled into legal cannabis businesses, their records indistinguishable from legitimate farms. It's the perfect disguise. Crime hidden inside legalization itself. For officers hiking through the Sierra foothills under rotor wash and gunfire, one thing becomes clear: the new drug war isn't fought in streets anymore. It's fought in the soil. Every criminal empire needs a bank. The cartels built theirs inside Los Angeles' fashion district. Behind boutiques glittering with rhinestones lies the black market peso exchange, a laundering labyrinth perfected over decades. Here's how it works. Drug dealers across America accumulate piles of small bills. Instead of wiring them south, they deliver them to brokers who sell those dollars to Latin American importers needing U.S. cash for shipments. The pesos from those importers then flow back to the cartels in Mexico, clean, untraceable, and tax-free. In January 2025, ICE and Homeland Security unleashed their largest raid in California history: 1,000 agents, sweeping through warehouses, offices, and garment shops. They seized nearly $90 million in cash, stacks of fake invoices, and luxury goods used as cover exports. Owners insisted they were innocent wholesalers. Ledgers told another story: millions moved through phantom sales that never existed. But investigators soon discovered a deeper layer. Chinese underground banks partnered with cartel accountants through crypto. Operation Fortune Runner uncovered $50 million laundered via offshore wallets in Macau and Singapore. The network bought luxury watches, cars, and microchips, reselling them abroad to balance books. For the cartels, this was evolution. They didn't need Swiss vaults. They had Shopify storefronts and blockchain. The fashion district became Wall Street for criminals, proving that in LA, even crime follows the market. While drugs destroy bodies, the cartels found an even darker product: bodies they could sell. By 2025, human trafficking had eclipsed narcotics as Mexico's fastest-growing illicit trade. Los Angeles, with its immigrant corridors and nightlife, became the epicenter. The Hoover criminals gang, operating under Sinaloa protection, ran a trafficking empire along Figueroa Street's notorious strip known as the Blade. Women and girls, some as young as 14, were lured through fake modeling ads and job offers. Their passports confiscated, they were forced into debt bondage. Their families threatened back home. During Operation Silvernet, federal agents hit 23 locations at once. What they found stunned even veterans. Hidden bunkers beneath motels, live streaming cameras, coded ledgers listing inventory. 80-plus victims were rescued. Some hadn't been outside in years. But the cruelty doesn't end there. Each escort service doubles as a laundering hub. Cartel cash recycled through Airbnb rentals, massage parlors, and clubs that look legitimate on paper. Even their online ads are algorithmically optimized, switching domains every 48 hours to evade filters. For cartels, trafficking is renewable income. For victims, it's a life sentence. And in the heart of California's dream factory, slavery thrives in silence. October 24th, 2025. Dawn broke red over Los Angeles. The city looked calm, unaware that history was about to be written beneath its streets. At exactly 3 a.m., the first strike team moved. A wall of armored trucks rolled out of the federal staging area near Ontario. Drones buzzed ahead like metal hornets, feeding live thermal imagery back to command centers. Within minutes, hundreds of coordinated raids detonated across 20 states. This was Operation Iron Dawn, the culmination of 2 years of intelligence sharing between the DEA, FBI, ICE, and Homeland Security. Every agency had a role. Every agent knew this wasn't just another bust. It was a declaration of war. As SWAT teams stormed cartel safe houses from Pomona to Houston, the radio chatter was deafening. Suspect detained, shipment secured, moving to phase 2. By sunrise, over 3,000 suspects were in custody, and the seizures were staggering. 12 tons of narcotics, $480 million in cash, gold bars, encrypted servers, and military-grade weapons smuggled from Eastern Europe. On the Pacific, Coast Guard cutters intercepted narco subs camouflaged to blend with the ocean. One commander later recalled, "They weren't fishing boats, they were submarines, fully built to disappear." Inside, the hold reeked of diesel, seawater, and cocaine. South of the border, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum launched simultaneous operations across Chiapas and Jalisco. In one raid, her troops seized aircraft and over 2,000 kilos of meth, cutting off CJNG's supply chain from Guatemala. For the first time in decades, Mexican and U.S. forces were coordinating in real time. Shared comms, live satellite feeds, joint intel. That evening, President Trump addressed the nation flanked by generals and federal chiefs. "This is full-spectrum warfare," he said. "We will dismantle these narco-terrorist networks and hunt them wherever they hide." The White House called it a decapitation strike. But among investigators, a darker rumor spread. Someone had leaked the cartel coordinates to U.S. agencies days before the raids, and it wasn't an informant. The digital trail led not south to Mexico, but north to New York City, to accounts once used by the Italian Mafia. For 50 years, they had watched their empire decay while the cartels took everything. Now it seemed the old mob had quietly delivered the killing blow, not out of loyalty, but vengeance. And Los Angeles, the empire's crown jewel, was where it all began to fall. The war on drugs. 3 words that have outlasted 9 presidents, 5 generations, and trillions in spending. It began in 1971 with Nixon's televised promise to end addiction. What he started became the longest-running conflict in American history. Over 5 decades, the strategy barely changed. More arrests, tougher laws, bigger budgets. Yet the product evolved faster than the policy. From the heroin epidemic of the 70s to the cocaine wars of the 80s, from meth labs in the 90s to fentanyl today, every decade brought a new enemy, deadlier and more profitable. By 2025, the results were damning. the US had spent over $1 trillion, incarcerated more than 20 million Americans, and still faced 84,000 overdose deaths in a single year. For context, that's more Americans than died in Vietnam every year. Technology offered hope, but also exposed futility. AI now tracks smuggling routes. Satellites trace heat signatures from jungle labs. Drones monitor border crossings. Yet for every innovation, the cartels counter with one of their own: encrypted logistics, 3D printed weapons, chemical analogs that evade classification. And beneath the statistics lies a deeper paradox. Every success creates new markets. When cocaine was cracked down on, meth surged. When prescription opioids were restricted, fentanyl filled the gap. Economists call it balloon pressure. Squeeze one side, the air shifts elsewhere. Even within law enforcement, fatigue bleeds through. One veteran DEA officer admitted, "We're not ending the war, we're just keeping it alive." Critics argue the war on drugs was never meant to be won. It was meant to be managed. A system that sustains budgets, politics, and prisons. Los Angeles, meanwhile, has remained its proving ground, a city where policy, poverty, and profit collide. The statistics are chilling. For every dollar spent on prevention, 10 go to enforcement. For every arrest, addiction grows in another neighborhood. Half a century later, the US may have the most advanced intelligence network in history, but it's still chasing ghosts born of demand. And as the world watched Operation Iron Dawn, many wondered, had the war finally turned or simply changed uniforms? To understand this war, you have to go back to the 1970s when power wore suits and smoked cigars in Manhattan boardrooms. Back then, the Italian Mafia ruled American crime. The Gambinos, Lucchese's, Genovese's, Colombos, and Bananos controlled everything from construction to casinos. But their reach was limited. They needed product, something addictive, portable, and global. Enter the cartels. The partnership began through the Pizza Connection, a transatlantic pipeline between Sicilian mobsters and Colombian traffickers. Shipments of cocaine were smuggled in tomato paste cans, shipped through Mexico, and distributed through Italian pizzerias across New York and New Jersey. It was brilliant. Clean storefronts, dirty money. In just 4 years, over 1.6 tons of cocaine entered the US disguised as food. FBI wiretaps later caught Sicilian Don Gaetano Badalamenti bragging about our Mexican partners, proof that the cartels were no longer couriers, they were collaborators. Through the 1980s and 1990s, the relationship deepened. Gulf Cartel boss Juan Garcia Abrego formed ties with the Gambinos, using Houston as his American hub. The Mafia provided distribution, safe houses, and corrupt dock workers. The cartels provided endless supply and firepower. Together, they built the modern narcotics network. Cash moved through Italian fronts, drugs moved through Mexican routes. Everyone got rich. But cracks formed beneath the surface. The Mafia ran on tradition and honor, omerta. The cartels ran on speed, fear, and innovation. By the early 2000s, one side was fading into nostalgia, while the other evolved into a paramilitary empire. The FBI's 1987 US versus Badalamenti trial exposed the web. 18 Mafia members were convicted, but the cartels learned faster than the law could adapt. They studied the Mafia's methods, hierarchy, discipline, corruption, then copied them, bigger and bloodier. By the 2010s, the students had surpassed the masters. Every empire falls. This one collapsed under the weight of chemistry. When the cartels discovered fentanyl, they discovered freedom. They no longer needed vast coca plantations or foreign suppliers. A few precursors from China and a lab the size of a garage could produce millions of lethal doses. It was cheap, portable, and untraceable, and it turned the Mafia obsolete overnight. The American mob, already gutted by RICO prosecutions and surveillance, couldn't compete. By 2020, fewer than 200 active made men remained. The once mighty 5 families, shadows of ghosts. The cartels, meanwhile, were recruiting ex-military, buying drones, and building submarines. The old codes of silence and respect were replaced with social media terror. Cartel assassins live-streamed executions, propaganda videos glamorized violence. The Mafia avoided headlines. The cartels weaponized them. The final interaction between the two came in 2017. During a DEA sting, Genovese soldier Eugene Rooster Onofrio tried to purchase 10 kilos of cocaine from a Sinaloa intermediary. The transaction was recorded, and both sides went down. It was the symbolic funeral of a 40-year alliance. After that, the cartels no longer needed permission, connections, or allies. They became the system itself. What the Mafia built through corruption, the cartels expanded through chaos. And as one FBI analyst noted, the mob taught them loyalty and money laundering. The cartels taught the world what happens when loyalty dies and profit never sleeps. By the time fentanyl reached American streets, the Mafia had already lost the throne. The cartels weren't partners anymore, they were kings. The Mafia had been silent for decades, but silence is not surrender, it's calculation. By early 2025, the whispers had turned into detonations. Convoys vanished, accountants disappeared. Stash houses erupted into flames under the cover of midnight. In the heart of Los Angeles, a ghost army was moving, disciplined, patient, surgical. Investigators combing crime scenes found traces of a signature long thought extinct. Italian-made shell casings, the faint scent of C4 cut with motor oil, a calling card of Cosa Nostra's old-school engineers. Someone was reviving lost traditions of organized revenge. Sources in law enforcement began noticing something even stranger: efficiency. These weren't chaotic gang shootings. The attackers hit specific nodes, distribution centers, wirehouses, and storage hubs. Each target crippled a piece of the cartel's logistics, like someone dismantling a circuit board with precision tools. Theories spread fast. Some claimed the Gambino remnants were reclaiming their lost markets. Others whispered that European mafiosi, tired of watching their syndicates decline, had returned through the ports of Long Beach with mercenaries and former intelligence operatives on their payroll. An intercepted message between two encrypted channels sealed the suspicion. Olive tree blooms at dawn. Old Mafia code for retaliation. As federal agencies pieced together the attacks, they realized the same coordinates. Warehouse locations, convoy timetables, and shipment manifests had already been sent to Washington days before Operation Iron Dawn. The implication was chilling. The mob wasn't just waging war on the cartels. They were fighting through the government. They fed intelligence to Homeland Security, watched the raids unfold, then cleaned up the survivors afterward. It was vengeance disguised as justice, a ghost war fought in plain sight. By the year's end, more than a dozen cartel lieutenants were dead, hundreds missing, and millions of dollars in cash seized or burned. The Mafia's resurgence wasn't public. It didn't need to be. It was whispered, feared, and felt. The message was clear. The old world hadn't vanished. It had simply gone digital, silent, and smarter. And it had just declared war on the new one. The aftermath of Operation Iron Dawn didn't look like victory. It looked like aftermath. Streets once alive with neon and nightlife now echoed with the sound of helicopters and the hum of surveillance drones. Los Angeles had traded chaos for control. But control, people soon learned, can feel like a cage. Federal checkpoints ringed the city. Entire neighborhoods were under curfew. Armored vehicles parked outside schools. It was supposed to feel safer, but fear had simply changed uniforms. Within months, overdose deaths, which had briefly fallen, began climbing again. Not from cocaine or heroin this time, but from new synthetic blends smuggled in through Canada and the East Coast. The supply chain had rerouted like a river finding new valleys. Criminal power never dies, it metastasizes. The Sinaloa and CJNG cartels fractured into dozens of splinter cells. Albanian, Dominican, and Balkan syndicates filled the gaps with ruthless efficiency. In Chicago, a new alliance dubbed the Silver Line was already moving product through rail shipments under agricultural cover. Meanwhile, Washington was celebrating. Press conferences boasted of unprecedented success, but inside the agencies, whispers of guilt spread. Had federal intelligence really come from mafia channels? Had America's most notorious crime family been repurposed as an informant? A leaked internal memo from the FBI later revealed the truth. Certain raids had indeed been based on off-book intelligence. Unofficial, untraceable, and shockingly accurate. Journalists began calling it the devil's deal. A moral paradox. To end one evil, the government had embraced another. Philosophers might call it utilitarianism. Agents called it survival. And for Los Angeles, the city that never truly sleeps, the line between justice and vengeance blurred beyond repair. The Mafia might have won a battle, but the soul of the war remained lost. Because in the end, every empire, legal or illegal, pays the same price. Permanence traded for peace, humanity traded for order. Los Angeles looks peaceful again. The ports hum, planes take off, tourists return. But beneath that polished calm, a new kind of empire has already risen, one that doesn't spill blood, it steals data. This is the digital cartel age, and it's far more dangerous than anything before. Gone are the days of contraband hidden in trucks. Now entire shipments exist as code. Smugglers upload encrypted instructions into AI systems that predict which customs inspections will be understaffed, then route packages accordingly. Blockchain contracts automate payments the moment a deal completes. No middleman, no evidence, no trace. In this new economy, the product doesn't matter. It can be fentanyl, organs, human identities, or stolen military schematics. It all moves through the same digital veins. Federal cyber units now fight cartels not in alleys, but in cloud servers. AI bots trained to detect suspicious patterns are battling other AI bots designed by criminal coders to mimic normal traffic. It's algorithm versus algorithm, a new kind of war where victory lasts milliseconds. Even the Mafia has adapted. The new Dons aren't street bosses, they're data brokers. They buy zero-day exploits, manipulate crypto markets, and trade influence like currencies. Instead of extortion rackets, they run information monopolies. In the dark web's hidden marketplaces, alliances form faster than treaties. Chinese crypto syndicates collaborate with Eastern European hackers. Nigerian fraud cells with South American traffickers. The borders that once defined crime have dissolved completely. A former DEA cyber analyst described it best. The future cartel won't control neighborhoods. It'll control servers. When it wants to hurt you, it won't send gunmen. It'll shut off your electricity. As cameras pan over empty Los Angeles warehouses once stacked with cocaine, the hum of servers replaces the echo of gunfire. The City of Angels has become a city of algorithms, a place where ghosts of the Mafia whisper through encrypted lines, and crime no longer needs a face. The Mafia ruled by fear, the cartels ruled by chaos. What's coming next will rule by code, and this time, when it rises, you won't see it coming, because it will already own your reflection. Los Angeles stands silent. A city rebuilt, yet forever haunted. The empire that once bled through its ports has gone underground, replaced by servers, codes, and shadows that no longer sleep. The names have changed, the methods evolved, but the hunger remains the same. Power without consequence, profit without face. For decades, the Mafia and the cartels defined the war for America's soul. Now, that war has entered a new dimension, one where enemies have no fingerprints, and battlefields exist inside microchips and encrypted clouds. The old Dons ruled with guns, the new ones rule with algorithms. So the question isn't who controls Los Angeles now, it's who controls the data flowing through it. If this investigation left you questioning what's really happening behind the next digital curtain, subscribe and stay with us, because in this war, the next trigger will be a click that could erase fortunes, silence nations, or rewrite entire histories before anyone even realizes the attack has begun. Stay alert, because we don't know what comes next. What was once fought with bullets is now waged in bandwidth, in silence, and in code. The new power doesn't march or shout. It hides, listens, and waits. And when it strikes, it won't leave smoke or fire behind.